I've played Counter-Strike for 20 years. I was tryharding around 15 years ago in 1.6 when I played a lot of online cups and went to several LAN tournaments. In CSGO, I've reached Global Elite a couple times and I'm FACEIT level 10, but I no longer reach for more than that. So you might wonder, MrMaxim, what would you use if you were really going all in? Let's start with the mouse. The impact on your performance is severely affected by the shape. Of course, you can be very good with an ergonomic shape like an EC or a def adder, but on a day-to-day basis, if I was going for the top of the scoreboard, I'd rely on a symmetric shape. It helps me immensely with coordination. Flicking right to left or left to right feels equal. At the time of recording this video, my choice would be the GPX. It has a comfortable symmetrical shape, including low weight, so there's less resistance flinging it around. Side note, I am not affiliated by any gear that's being mentioned in the video. Next up is sensitivity. Sense directly influences your aim. This is arguably the most important setting in the game. I would use a low value where I will never feel like I'm missing any shots that I'm supposed to land. This means sacrificing the fun of playing with a high 360 no-scope sense. I've noticed with years of experience that the lower you go, the higher the reward gets. Eventually though, there's a point where you can't get the reward any higher and your sense will just get slower. That's where I would stop. At that point, it is pretty low already and not normally fun to use, but it's required. I also wouldn't rely on mouse acceleration since the learning curve is just longer. In the end of the day, my tryhard value would be something like 640 eDPI. That's the same as 0.4 in-game with 1600 DPI or 1.6 with 400 DPI. Now using this sense requires a large pad for some maneuver, which is next on the list. I don't care if it's control or speed based, I just need it to be soft and have a consistent feel all around. Today I'm using the Artisan Hayate Otsu for those exact reasons, and the pad feels silky smooth. When it comes to the keyboard, the smaller the better. I want both hands close to each other for a cohesive feel. I'd go for a 60% layout. With this, I'd like an almost complete silent keyboard with just tiny clickety clicks on top to help with audio feedback. And for the audio itself, if I was tryharding, I would use in-ears. They're just way more comfortable than a headset. Also know this, CSGO, just like many other FPS titles, use regular stereo 2.1, which means you can pinpoint sounds in the game with even a cheap pair of in-ears just fine. When it comes to my videos on YouTube, I of course want the best image quality to make the watch experience nicer. But if I'm going full tryhard, I just need good visual clarity and no performance-hungry settings. This doesn't necessarily mean that I need a low resolution. The game is well optimized in the sense that you can play a high resolution with minimal performance loss. I'm not going to fool myself to believe that I'll be playing much better on a lower resolution for the better performance. That's just not true. I will always value visual clarity over that slight performance boost. This means that I can use 1920x1080 on my BenQ XL2546. High FOV, visual clarity by the pixel, and the minimal performance loss is worth it. As for the actual video settings in game, this is what I would use. As for my monitor, the size of it is perfectly fine. I would even be happy with the smaller size. Apart from that, I don't like oversaturated color settings or inhuman brightness levels. Even if I'm tryharding, I wouldn't want that. I would just use the highest in-game brightness level, and for the monitor, I'd keep my visuals calm, natural, and remove some blue light, which is nicer in the long run. Now for the crosshair. Of course, having a large fancy crosshair is cool and all, but this is for a tryhard setup. The tryhard mentality for a crosshair is simple. It is nothing more than a guideline for finding the center point of your screen where you expect your bullets to land. This is the only thing that matters. As long as you know where that center point is, your crosshair can be as small as a pixel. Making it bigger than needed is unnecessary and takes up more space than what is needed. For me, I just need something very small. This is enough and it gives me clear visibility behind it. When it comes to my system, I would reinstall it, use my fastest drive, and only put the mandatory stuff in like Steam, VoIPs, Opera browser, the anti-cheats, and have minimal services running while I'm playing. I would also get a stripped NVIDIA driver just to remove features I don't use to boost performance, and I would set this to performance mode. If I'm really not in the mood, I would also disable Shadowplay for an extra boost. And finally, I would add shortcuts on my desktop for quick access. Outside of my setup, I would make sure that I have some light in my room, never play in the dark. I'd probably consume sugar-free energy drinks to maintain my energy and make sure I'm not hungry when I'm playing. Most importantly, I think, is to make sure that I don't have anything that's bothering me in life or something that I need to do that I haven't finished doing. And with all that, I'd be living the peak.